Going to do the pledge again, or
Yeah.
are we going to do it? Just making sure.
Yep. If you could all join me for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a roll call of supervisors, please? Supervisor Frank. Thank you. All supervisors are accounted for. Citizens' comments. Any citizens wishing to speak, you have 5 minutes. Please state your name and address to the record and step to the podium, please. Good evening. Sorry, go ahead.
Is that better?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. I sent a letter, I'm going to make this brief, mercifully for you. I'm asking you to reconsider your support for the current plan for Highway KR. As a 30-year resident of the Village of Summers, I've watched in dismay as plans have been brought forth by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation for the expansion of Highway KR. At a whopping price tag of $59 million for just 2.8 miles of roadway, this improvement will have a footprint wider than Highway 31 and 2 railroad overpasses at a price tag of $10 to $30 million each. Jurisdictional transfer of this project was handed over to the state back in April of last year, before many details, including the 2 overpasses, were even on the blueprints. Please don't compound that rush to judgment by voting on the resolution to advance this project without educating yourselves further with all the facts. Take the time to visit the site. Talk to the residents, not just on the route, but in the surrounding area. I'm confident that armed with all the information, you will make the right decision. Please don't allow the mistakes made in Mount Pleasant and Racine to be duplicated here. The residents had their homes and farms blighted and taken all in the name of progress. What I fear most is that a precedent has been set. Please do the right thing and slow this needlessly expensive road plan down and send it back to the state for further study. In conjunction with that, and I've learned more about roads and highways and, oh my gosh, more than I ever wanted to know. And I've been kind of a bulldog about this thing. I came across the drawing that you have in front of you, I think, that shows the zoo interchange, and it's a 3D model version of what that road would look like. And there are drawings similar to this on a variety of road projects put out by the state. But this was never given to us for KR. We were presented with drawings that had a million lines around them, almost impossible to decipher. This very clearly depicts what you're going to see in a 3D view. Why weren't we given that opportunity to see what it's really going to look like? The only reason I can think of is that they were too rushed. They're trying to slide one in on us. I don't know. I don't want to think that. I think we all hoped that the DOT would do the right thing. In fact, we're having lunch with 2 of the DOT people tomorrow, and I hope that goes well. But I just think that we were too trusting, and we signed over jurisdiction before maybe it should have happened. And I'm hoping for a better outcome. And it just please take the time to educate yourselves. I know you've got a lot on your plates, and this is not the top of your list perhaps, but for those of us who live in the area, it's very important. We're not directly on the alignment. But the more I've looked at it, the more I've learned, the more I've seen flaws in the logic. And I don't think that the DOT is unimpeachable. They have their own agendas, and that doesn't mean that should be our agendas. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Please state your name and address for the record.
Leslie Mai, 7820 County Line Road, Mount Pleasant.
I'm sorry to be darkening your doors again. I truly am. But I have to admit, I am scared. The power of eminent domain is truly terrifying when it's facing you, and you all hold the power over us, our homes, the safety of our neighborhood, the noise level, our home values. And I apologize to the Public Works Committee because they've heard some of this before, and I'll try not to darken your doors again. While many county roads are crumbling around us, does it really make sense to spend $59 million of taxpayer money on a 2.8-mile stretch of KR, which is only Phase 2 of the project? This $59 million includes approximately $40 million for 2 railroad overpasses, and all just to satisfy Foxconn, get commuters faster to the lake by several minutes, and to keep hurried commuters from possibly being inconvenienced by having to wait for a train. I am a Mount Pleasant resident along KR who now stands to lose 103 feet of my front yard. I have a 100-foot setback and a 25-foot right-of-way. If you do the math, this places this huge superhighway literally feet from my front door. I will never be able to sell this home in the future. Who would want it? A sewer pack study of KR was done several years ago. This study revealed that the existing 2 lanes of KR have the capacity to handle 14,000 vehicles per day. At the time of the study, there were 4,500 to 8,000 per day using KR. Sewer pack went on to say that this number was projected to increase by year 2050 to 5,000 to 9,000 vehicles per day, still significantly under the maximum capacity. What has changed, you asked? Foxconn with its Gen 10 factory and 13,000 jobs. Except that's not the factory that is being built now. Instead, after all the millions of dollars being spent on infrastructure improvements for them, what we're getting is a Gen 6 and 1,500 jobs. However, in the last 2 days, we've discovered we may not even be getting that. Some experts are now saying Foxconn is not building on a foundation that will support the Gen 6 LCD manufacturing facility, which is the most recent of Foxconn's promises. You know, the one with 1,500 jobs? Instead, experts are saying the foundation is more consistent with an assembly and packaging plant, assembling screens from an outside source, presumably China. Who knows what impact that will have on types and number of jobs? One would assume downward. And let's face it, Foxconn may come, may go, or never come at all, but the residents of Racine and Kenosha County will still be here and living with the decisions that you reach. WSDOT's proposal of an unsafe speed limit of 45 or 50 miles per hour, depending upon which WSDOT rep you speak with. Our children and grandchildren play in the yards along KR and they wait for the school bus along it. Residents along 31, as it approaches 11 in Mount Pleasant, have a reduced 35 mile per hour speed limit. Why can't we? Their property and lives are important, and I ask you why ours along KR are less so. Let's take the time to rethink this project and expenditure. Let's get it right for all residents. We should reduce the speed limit to 35 through our densely populated neighborhood to increase safety. We could expand the road to 4 lanes, but reduce the road footprint. We could save some resident land, including mine, and green infrastructure. We could eliminate the overpasses and or reroute the massive 10-foot bike path behind our homes into the open spaces by the Pike River Parkway instead of through our front yards. We could implement compromises and save some money that could ultimately be used for fixing some of our other crumbling county roads that desperately need attention. Some are getting to be real suspension busters. To move forward with this project in its current form without further study that encompasses the new direction or lack thereof of Foxconn is fiscally and morally irresponsible. SewerPAC has told us they are willing to do further study on KR for free, including the alternate route proposed by the Brockmeyers. All they need is for someone to ask them to do it. Why are we in such a rush with this project? Foxconn sure doesn't appear in a rush to build what they promised. This project needs to be sent back to the DOT for re-evaluation and redesign, which incorporates resident concerns and objections. Again, let's get it right for all residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Citizens' comments? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Al Brockmeyer, 5632 First Place. I know an awful lot of the people that sit on this board, and I've known Ray for more than years than I think he wants to say, and also Andy. And I know they're really good people, and what they probably discussed in closed session is very good information. I think what we have today is just a few concerns. Well, we have concerns about KR, and I can probably break them down to the three. One is speed limit. They have a speed limit right now, which they're proposing, it's going to be 50 miles an hour. That's ridiculous. I mean, we're in a residential neighborhood, and for any kind of safety reasons whatsoever, you can't have a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit because people won't go 50. I mean, they'll go 60, 65. So that's one of the things that we need to talk to the Department of Transportation with your help, because you are the politicians that can do this. As citizens, it'll go right over the top of them. The second thing that we need to take a look at, I was Director of Land Information, and I also did some mapping. So I did mapping of roadways. The footprint for this roadway is huge. I mean, we're looking at something like 31, basically. Not quite as big, but not very far from it. So I think you need to have a roadway which is a lot less obtrusive to people. It would still serve the needs of having a 4-lane highway, but you're not going to have something that has a 30-foot median in the middle of it. So that's the second thing. We need to be able to take that roadway and lower that footprint. And the other thing is overpasses. My wife did some researching. I didn't believe her at first. She talked to the engineer at SewerPAC, Southeast Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, and they said that an overpass goes between $15 and $20 million. I still find that hard to believe. And you need 2 of them? I don't think so. And also, if you did put an overpass next to the bike subdivision, which we live at, you're going to be going over a hill into a residential area at 50 miles an hour. That is not safe. You have to make sure that you do something that will have some safety associated with it and will be cost effective. An overpass, you take a look at Highway 11 in Sturtevant. There's no overpass there. It's 4 lanes. Why spend so much money to put in an overpass which could directly affect safety of individuals? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Al. Any other citizens' comments? Citizens' comments? Any other citizens' comments? Seeing none, citizens' comments are closed. Moving on, announcements of the chairman. I do have a couple. Just want to apprise all county board supervisors that with the election that was last night, committee structures will change. New committee assignments potentially will stay the same, some will move, we don't know yet. These new assignments would start in May. With that, that's all I have. I'll move on to supervisor reports. Supervisor Rodriguez, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I first want to start off with an email that you guys should have all gotten from the clerk's office regarding a presentation I went to. You should have gotten this presentation, Legal Topics and Emergency Management. We had a representative from the state come and present to myself and other municipal leaders from throughout the county what our options are when an emergency occurs within our jurisdiction, whether that be a natural disaster, something like terrorism, all sorts of things can be considered an emergency. So in this packet and in the other documents that were sent with it, it kind of gives you a definition of what an emergency is, what our powers are for varying municipalities. But the most important thing that I took from this was this sheet here. It's a single sheet, and it's titled, Who Can Declare a Disaster? And it was my knowledge, and I know for at least some of my colleagues here tonight, I shared this understanding that the only 2 individuals within our county that could declare an emergency are the county executive and the sheriff, and that is not the case. So should there be a situation where the 2 of them decide not to declare an emergency, but this body or even the county board chair can do it himself, declare an emergency, with a simple majority of that we have with a quorum, we can declare an emergency should the 2 individuals I state decide not to, or they're unable to for whatever reason. And we are allowed to meet out of a typical circumstance. So we wouldn't have to wait for our next county board meeting to do this. We could call a meeting with a quorum and declare an emergency, and with that come the benefits of declaring emergency, such as the state being activating their National Guard, and so we get those benefits, and we don't have to wait for certain individuals. Along with that, we can, as a county, declare somebody to have that authority. So if we wanted to make Lieutenant Staples, for example, who is currently in charge of our emergency management program in Kenosha County, if we wanted to say, you know, should the body not be able to meet, whatever reason, we can authorize him to make that decision on his own. And I'm not saying that we should do that necessarily, but that is an option to us. Furthermore, I have, moving on to a different issue, I have talked with our DA and our county executive and corp counsel regarding, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't think those who commit heinous acts should get any sort of notoriety. I don't think anybody should know their name. I think they should rot. That's how I believe it. So inmate 00160108, I'm sure you guys know who I'm talking about, has a parole hearing in May. I've asked corp counsel to draft a resolution urging the parole board not to release this individual. This individual, in cold blood, killed Mr. Veit, a longtime community member, before my time, I'll admit that. But nevertheless, I mean, in cold blood, has no remorse to this day, and I think just the idea of moving him to a low-security prison, it kind of hints that he might get parole. The community doesn't need this. This legislator realized this later after this individual was sentenced, and now in Wisconsin we have truth in sentencing, where if you get sentenced to life, that means life, and in my opinion, that's how it should be. This individual took the life of somebody, and I don't think he should see the light of day. So with that, I've asked Corp Counsel to draft a resolution that would hopefully be before us at our next meeting. It will be down in the clerk's office for anyone to add their name to, and then it would be sent to the parole board. We'd have to suspend rules in that because it's a, you know, if the chair would allow, because it's time sensitive, but I just wanted to make that known to the rest of you as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Rodriguez. Supervisor Getz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was reading in the paper over the weekend that there were 4 overdoses in 1 week. And I read on to, the article went on to say that, you know, we were down last year to, I don't know if it was 57 or 57 to 46, but I mean, 4 in 1 week. We all know what the opioid problem is here. And the article did mention the opioid task force, and I would direct the chair of the board to put on our agenda, the first agenda in May, a report on what the opioid task force is and what they're doing. I've spoken to Director Jansen about this, and he said that they would have no problem putting something together. So if it is your will, I would appreciate you putting it on that agenda in the beginning of May.
Okay, thank you. It will be put on the agenda.
Thank you. The second thing I want to say is, just so everybody's aware, pertinent to our last discussion, the meeting that's going to talk about the resolution with Finance and Public Works, there's going to be no citizens' comments with that. So I would just direct, you know, as my opinion, I would think that staff would want to put these changes together and let the public see the changes prior to our meeting, so that they don't all show up and have a conniption about not being able to speak when the changes are first being brought to them. So you could do whatever you want, but I think, you know, maybe Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday before the Finance Public Works joint meeting, there should be something out at 45 and 50 to make these changes, you know, make the public aware of these changes so they can contact their supervisors or whatever. So that's just my opinion, but I know that if we have no citizens' comments, and that's the first time that the changes are brought out, that may be a problem. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I will, I'll speak to the administration about that, and I'll talk to the Chairman of Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
In regards to that. Thank you. Supervisor Grady, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to bring everyone up to speed, you've heard quite a bit lately about KR, and I think Supervisor Alverman with Public Works can give you more details and flesh it out. But just from my perspective, I was able to attend both meetings that occurred in the Village of Somers, where the Wisconsin Department of Transportation presented their plans for the KR expansion. Very well attended. The roads surrounding the place were having cars parked on both sides, a lot of public comment, a lot of concerns, and I can say that there were revisions even from their first go-around to the second go-around, which was just recent, in terms of what they had proposed. I think it's important to understand the phases of this, and I think Ray, touched upon this, but just so everyone in the room gets it, when you take a look at the KR stretch from the frontage road to County H, it's going to be mega. It's going to be huge. We're talking 3 travel lanes in each direction, a couple of dedicated left-hand turn lanes, a couple of dedicated right-hand turn lanes. We're talking 9 to 10 lanes at the intersection of KR and H. Huge. It's in progress. They'll have half of it done by the month of July, end of July. The issue becomes when you have this type of structure and now you're approaching the balance of KR proceeding eastward from County H, what do? Do you leave it down to 2 lanes? The comments that I heard Monday night at the Public Works presentation committee meeting was that the majority of the residents actually thought that there should be some reconfiguration of that road. It's aging, it needs to be replaced. No one that I heard, with very few exceptions, were saying we shouldn't do this. This is a bad plan to do something that needs to be done in the way of upgrades. The number one thing I heard, each and every commenter, without exception, speed, speed, and speed. That is the big, big concern. And I think the concern revolves around the fact that if you have a design of a road that allows for higher speeds, then that will be the default presentation. So I don't have much more to comment upon that. I'll just let others speak who are more knowledgeable than myself. Ray is here. Dennis Elferman will give you some updates as well. But that's what I have gleaned from the proceedings so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Grady. Supervisor Elverman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought I would be just total non-KR. I was going to, there's so much going on. Supervisor Gens did inform everyone that we are going to be meeting on the 11th with finance to go over acquisition paperwork and a possible action there as joint committees. So that is going to be 6:30 on the second floor in this building on the 11th. The department has a whole lot of other things going on. I'm going to try to be as brief as I can, but facilities is horribly busy. I know I've mentioned the courthouse chiller that's still not complete. We're looking at an April completion. Heat pump replacement in this building. Pre-construction meeting was held on the 20th. Work to begin shortly. And parking lot paving for the public safety building was, we had a pre-construction meeting scheduled in the next few weeks. One thing I did want to mention is ongoing projects that we do, and I don't mention often. The focus on energy, it's working in connection with our utility companies, and they offer incentives. We have been doing this for years, but Mike Schrant and Ray have taken it up quite a notch in the last 4 or 5 years. They offer incentives for us to do things with our lighting. I know I did mention when we did the courthouse, LED lighting here and there, and I have a list of all the different projects. One popped out at me last week, and it was upgrading jail dorm lights to LED at the detention center. Normally, our payback in years and incentives are 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. This one, we had existing fixtures that these new bulbs could go into, so we had no huge equipment costs. So we had an annual or project cost estimate of $26,000. Potential incentives of $9,000. That's from the utility company. Payback in years, 0.04. So I had to look real fast. The The payback was in a third of a year, or a quarter of a year. Annual savings on this one project, $43,362. And Mike and Ray are constantly working on this. I have a full list, and we go over this as a committee each month. That's the largest I've seen. I had to ask Ray about it. I thought it was wrong. But that is a one-year savings, payback in 4 months. The the Anderson Arts Center, another facilities project, is ongoing. Geothermal well drilling began on March 18th. Branch 1 courtroom renovation, targeting completion for June 10th. This building, we have a refresh project. Bids were received on March 28th. This refreshed building that we're sitting in has been 25 years now, since we have, as a county board and as an administration, been in this building. We've all talked about highways quite a bit, but we still have the ongoing S project. The construction is still scheduled for spring of 2020. The phase 2 of that, County H I-94, 90% complete. For our real estate acquisition, County F realignment is still on schedule for 2020. Highway K project, we are working on design factors with the city, and that will not be a next year project as we had initially thought. And the Highway KR enhancement project, as I said, the next meeting that we will have on that will be next week on the 11th, joint meeting with Finance. There's a whole lot of things going on in parks. Boundless Adventures, you all had met the people here. They have over 120 obstacles and features on the premises, almost complete. Bristol Woods Parkway, to accommodate that, and the new revamped Pringle Center is underway. Pike River Restoration, we enhanced the Shop Bluff stabilization, substantially complete. Pets Ball Field, completion is July 1st. Special events for parks, Gruber Law Offices, Supervisor Rhodes, you might want to listen to this, they're sponsoring. They are sponsoring our weekly Friday movie nights, again at Petrifying Springs Park, from 6:14 to 8:23, and the picnic in the park on the August 24th at Petrifying Springs Park. And again, Gruber Law Offices donated $1,000 to sponsor the event. That's in parks. Golf, everyone knows the golf courses are opening, and our new Petrifying Springs Superintendent, Ryan Rutherford from Black Wolf Run, started this week. So I actually do have a whole lot more, but I know we've probably had enough of Public Works, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Supervisor Overman. Supervisor Nudo, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just want to mention that the Legislative Committee meeting has been postponed to May 23rd, and our guest speaker is going to be Congressman Brian Stiles, so if anybody wants to attend at that time, May 23rd. No, I'm sorry, April 23rd.
April 23rd.
Sorry about that.
All right. Anything else, Supervisor? That's it? Supervisor Nordigan, you have the floor.
Yeah, and I think, just to reflect on a couple of things that Supervisor Grader and Supervisor Elverman had said, at the Public Works meeting, I heard a lot of speed, speed, speed as well, and I think that's something in KR, I think that I would hope would get addressed, and I would like to see the changes that have been made from the initial proposals all the way through. It's going to be hard for me to move forward on voting on anything without knowing if we're at least attempting to meet all of the I won't say requirements, but issues that are being brought up by those residents. But every single resident had said KR needs to be improved as well. So, I mean, something does have to be done, it sounds like, out there. And I guess the $6,000 savings in lighting at the jail. I talked to Mike after the meeting, and he said that's a 50% savings. They were spending $92,000 a year on lighting just in that jail, so it's a huge savings. Focus on Energy is not just for large facilities. You can go on We Energy's site, click on the Focus on Energy stuff. If you don't already know that, they have energy saving boxes of different things, water and electric savings at any resident who's getting serviced by their particular company. You can go on that site, and every 3 years, you can pick a different box to get. I just got mine, and, you know, be saving some more money myself, and it's all free. So take advantage of it. Works out well. And then, I think that's it.
All right. Thanks. Thank you, Supervisor Nordigan. Again, we have Supervisor Gens.
Thanks for indulging me. Through the chair to the chairs of Public Works and Finance, you might want to have that meeting in here. I don't think you're going to get, even if there's no citizens' comments, it's going to be affecting them, and a lot are going to come. You might get 40 or 50 people, as we're at the Public Works meeting, and there's nowhere to put them up there, so you might have to hold that here. Just
Well, I would think that's something that the committee chairs can discuss.
Yep. Just wanted to bring it up. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your attention to that detail.
I'm nothing if not detail-oriented.
Seeing no other supervisor reports are closed. County Clerk.
Old business, ordinance, second reading. 26 from the Public Works Facilities Committee, an ordinance to change the speed limit on County H in the town of Paris. Elverman, yes. Franco, yes. Scalitsky, yes. Uhas, yes. Nordigan, yes. Poole, yes. Cardinelli, excused.
Supervisor Alverman, you have the floor.
I move ordinance 26.
Thank you. I have a motion by Supervisor Alverman, a second by Supervisor Franco. Supervisor Alverman.
There is a 1.2-mile stretch of County A in the town of Paris that the town had requested we look at and reduce the speed limit, and that is currently at 55 miles an hour. We do a series of warrants on that. We do traffic studies, we do crash analyses and things, and our highway commissioner agreed that the speed limit should be lowered on that stretch of road, and that would be lowering it from 55 to 35. That is our recommendation. It was the town of Paris's request, and I ask for your agreement with us.
Thank you, Supervisor Alverman. Discussion, Supervisor Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This dovetails with the item that comes after it, and I haven't really had much contact with Public Works as I used to be on that committee, but it is a little bit interesting to see the fact that westbound they want to reduce it down to 35, but in the very next proposition the truck traffic can go up to 45 miles an hour eastbound on A. So maybe at some point we can have Chairman or Mr. Arbit comment upon the rationale for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Grady. Seeing no other discussion on this, all those in favor of this ordinance say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ordinance passes.
Ordinance 27 27, from the Public Works Facility Committee, an ordinance to change the speed limit on County A in the Village of Summers. Elverman, yes. Franco, yes. Scalitsky, yes. Uhas, yes. Nordigan, yes. Poole, yes. Cardinelli, excused.
Supervisor Alverman, you have the floor.
I move ordinance 27.
Thank you. I have a motion by Supervisor Alverman and a second by Supervisor Uhas. Supervisor Alverman.
The section of road here is a different section of road. This is in the Village of Summers, and they had requested a reduction to 45 miles an hour. Again, the study and the warrants and the crash data that was put together did not warrant that done. But the executive summary did say, due to high truck volume and the potential for truck traffic volume to continue to increase, the staff recommends lowering of the posted speed limit for truck traffic from 55 to 45. West Frontage Road in County H. So this was a recommendation from our commissioner for truck traffic alone to be reduced to 45 miles an hour. And I ask for your positive votes on this.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Alverman. We do have some discussion in regards to this, Supervisor Grady.
So I think that answers my question. It's actually a reduction from 55 down to 45. Is that intended to be a permanent situation, permanent reduction?
It would be normally a permanent reduction unless our commissioner, sheriff's department, and other people involved in the traffic pattern there would see a huge increase or an increase in accidents or traffic. But right now, our commissioner believes that the only thing affecting that stretch of highway is the truck traffic.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Grady. Supervisor Ron Frederick, you have the floor.
Yeah, the question I have is reducing it to 45 for trucks. Isn't that going to create a problem when cars can go 55 and trucks can go 45? Are people going to want to pass, and could create a hazard for people, for cars?
I can defer that to Ray or Clement or the chair of the committee.
I think Clement's perfect for
Okay.
this.
Clement, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It typically will not create a problem between the two types of vehicles because of typically the smaller vehicles that go faster and they have the opportunity to overtake. But I just want to stress that one of the main reasons why it was determined that we should lower it for the trucks was because of the conflict between the trucks and the farm equipment, which are massive and they're very slow. And so the trucks, they don't have that capability as small vehicles to overtake. And so if you try to reduce that, then you will see that if you reduce the speed for the trucks, then the trucks then drive at a speed closer to where the heavy-duty equipment are traveling at, and then it creates a consistency in the speed and makes it a little bit safer. So that was the idea.
Like I said, it doesn't think that answer my question. If you're going to have cars going 55 and trucks going 45, you're going to have a backup of cars behind trucks, and then somebody's going to try to pass, and the next thing you know, you got an accident. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I see. I mean, I'm not against to lowering the traffic. Wouldn't it be better just lower it for everybody? During that period, I mean, is this during the construction? Is that what it's all about?
I didn't catch the last part.
He stated, is this during construction, or will this be a permanent lowering of the speed limit?
It will be a permanent, and it's possible to have the two traffic speed limit for two types of vehicle.
I think it's a bad idea myself.
Anything else, Supervisor Frederick?
Nope, I'm going to vote no.
Okay, seeing no other discussion,
I have a roll call, please.
a roll call has been requested. If you're in favor of lowering the speed limit, vote yes. If you're not in favor, vote no. Passes, what was that, 18-4. Moving on.
Ordinance 28 from the Planning, Development, Extension, Education Committee, an ordinance regarding amendment to the text of the Kenosha County General Zoning and Shoreland Floodplain Zoning Ordinance to modify and amend language relative to the requirement, excuse me, for foundation surveys for new construction, sign distance and height, multiple family dwellings, and definitions. Decker, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Poole, yes. Nordigan, yes. Rodriguez, yes.
Supervisor Decker, you have the floor.
Move ordinance 28.
Thank you. I have a motion by Supervisor Decker, second by Supervisor Skalitsky. Supervisor Decker.
Ordinance 28 removes the ability to waive foundation surveys. It also adjusts wording for the walls, for wall signs. There are some changes to the conditional use permit requirements because of changes in Wisconsin state statutes, and it removes mention of the Camp Lake, Center Lake district because of the incorporation of Salem Lakes.
Thank you. Any discussion in regard to this? Seeing none, all those in favor of the ordinance say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ordinance passes.
23, communications from the Finance Administration Committee regarding the 2018 year-end closeout report and a resolution review to the 2018 budget closeout.
Refer to Finance Administration Committee.
Claims, 29, Richard and Roberta Weeks and Icky Rickies versus Kenosha County, objection to relocation order and jurisdictional offer.
Refer to Corporation Council.
30, Ronald Rinaldi versus Kenosha County, objection to relocation order and jurisdictional offer.
Refer to Corporation Council.
Approval of the March 19, 2019 minutes by Supervisor Kubicki.
Supervisor Kubicki, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to approve the March 19, 2019 County Board minutes as presented.
I have a motion by Supervisor Kubicki and a second by Supervisor Ron Frederick. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Can I have a motion to adjourn? I have a motion to adjourn by Supervisor Uhas and a second by Supervisor Rodriguez. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you. Have a nice evening.